Hi guys, welcome to Counterpoints. My name's Conor. I'm a science fiction, politics, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran, and I would argue a real Republican. This is relevant, particularly to this debate, because we are going to have Tim Miller going up against Hasan Piker. In my opinion, those are the two players that I care most about within this little drama panel that we're going to watch. Reason being is that Hasan Piker, in my opinion, is a tanky apologist. He's an authoritarian leftist. He's infiltrated the Democratic Party. He's way too sanitized. He's way too tolerated within normie Democratic spheres. Whereas Tim Miller used to be a never Trump Republican, and now he's arguably a right-wing Democrat. And so this is kind of my frustration with this, is the mere fact that they're able to get onto a panel and be congenial to each other is frustrating to me politically. That being said, I want to see if they actually press each other on their political differences, because realistically, I do not think these people should be in a political coalition. Let's take a look.
Hi, everybody. Wow. I'm John Lovett. We're live at Cricket Con. Oh, yeah. All right, he's got people. Everybody here has got people everywhere, you know?
We're in the Reagan building, baby. I've co-opted your ass.
Can't lose control just yet. In his 1992 convention speech, Bill Clinton, who is perfect, said of Republicans who were at the time angry about Murphy Brown being a single mom on television, if other politicians make you feel like you're not part of their family, come on and be part of ours. Republicans were the hall monitors, we were welcoming. 3 decades later, Trump found an audience among pretty apolitical comedians and media personalities and their fans who see Democrats as pious and scolding. The Democratic Party is widely reviled. A broad survey of working class voters described Democrats as, quote, woke, weak, and out of touch. Coming out of Tuesday, which was awesome. Semaphores Dave.
Woke Sharia.
What? Yeah.
Woke Sharia, baby.
We're all living in
He's not joking.
Mamdanistan now. Semaphores Dave Weigel put it best in summarizing the exit polls. What do you think of the Democrats? They stink. Who did you vote for? As many Democrats as possible. So where do we go from here? Joining me, our streamer and political commentator, Hasan Piker. MS Now's Simone Sanders. The Bulwark's Tim Miller. And the co-host of The Five, Fox News' Jessica Tara. Tim, I want to...
Base Perry for $5 says, I volunteer to be your first recipient. I'll even sell the NPR pass for $25 as an early bird special. Thanks, Perry. Okay, so first, I need to make my... What do you do it where you have my link tree? I've needed to make my link tree since like mid-October. So first I need to make my link tree. Then I need to make sure that all my links are active and functioning. Then I need to actually plug all my Counterpoint sci-fi and Counterpoint Star Wars content onto my other channels. Then I need to do Community of Grill Hottest merch. Then we'll start working on the reparation N-word pass pool fund.
Start with you, and I want to just concede that this is like a big topic, and it can be hard to tease out style from substance, strategy, ideology, but I want to start with that 2024 dynamic. You have Trump and his allies on Rogan and a whole bunch of apolitical shows and media. In hindsight, Democrats say, oh, we need Democrats that can go everywhere. They have to go everywhere just like Trump did. But then we look around and we say, well, who are the Democrats that can do that? And as a former
Wowman says, do you take Zelly? Absolutely.
Republican, as a pilgrim in an unholy land, who's gone from viewing Democrats being annoying as an asset to a liability, like, where is your head at?
Well, I was happy about the woke Sharia in New York, but you do have to remember that the CIA has taken over in Virginia across the river. So the deep state establishment is also on the rise.
Big tent.
Big tent. You know.
Okay, this is a joke, and I'm happy that Tim has found his niche. However, I will say that this is one of the alarming things about this entire dynamic for me. Mamdani should be an alarm bell. And I understand that there's like very specific reasons why he got elected. New York City is deep blue. They obviously have a cost of living crisis that is probably the worst in the country. Their government is not particularly responsive. The law enforcement is viewed as unresponsive, kind of stupid. There's a whole host of reasons for why. And then also Cuomo like split the moderate vote along with whatever the Republican's name was. I forget who his name was, but he was like a guardian angel at some point, and he got shot by the mob at some point. Apparently, he's like a total psycho, but he's actually like a charismatic psycho. So the Republican and Cuomo split the moderate vote, which is why Mamdani won. So I understand that. But a never Trump Republican recently becoming the right wing of the Democratic Party, kind of being like, ha ha ha, a socialist or a communist in power, that frustrates the shit out of me and it kind of pisses me off. So yeah. El Messer, I know it's a joke. There should be some contention there. There should be heat. El Messer for 100 DKK says, libs to reject the hysterical, femme-aggressive nonsense and most social theories from subversive, disaffected post-1968 communists. It enables the right wing to get away with a lot of crazy stuff and still be electable. I mean, I agree.
Oh, I love it. You guys are kind of annoying, and it is something that we're dealing with. And I think that it's important to just accept it and think about it. And the fundamental question that you got to, which was, okay, well, we need a Rogan of our own, or we got to be able to go hang out with these, folks. We got to be appealing more to the comedian set. And then it's like, well, who would go on the podcast? And then it's like, well, are you available? Are you? Like the list is kind of short, right? And so, we can't create people from scratch, but I think that it's important, when I look back at the mistakes the Democrats made that got us to this place, it's like, Biden wins in 20 when everybody's inside, right? So you didn't have to be out there. And then in 22, it's like, well, we didn't have a red wave. So it's like things are going pretty well, right? And so I just think that there was a lot of just inertia and status quo happening, and a lot of the problems that were undergirding that, a lot of things people were frustrated with about COVID or about the not as fun parts of woke Sharia, right? Like there wasn't a lot of reflection on that, and I think that it's good to reflect on it now. And I think that Tuesday was awesome, but just because we did really well on Tuesday because Trump is fucking everything up does not mean that we shouldn't also think about how we can continue to kind of expand out and appeal to more people.
Simone.
Yeah, his use of the word "we" makes me uncomfortable. But anyways, and also kind of like the tepid, oh, I have some problems with woke Sharia. But guys, this is the problem. I'm just going to hit this every single time. Wealth inequality, rapid demographic change, existential technological shifts, dissolution of the social fabric. Dissolution of the social fabric is probably, I would put that as the one that we can actually solve as a community. Existential technological shifts, we can't do shit about it. We just have to ride the waves of existential technological shifts. But having a coherent social fabric is the way that will make this thing less bad. Rapid demographic change, tamping down on immigration is going to help with that. But at the same time, being intentional about integration of new Americans is going to help with rapid demographic change, and restoring social fabric is going to be a part of that as well. And then wealth inequality is the biggest one that needs to be addressed at a systemic level. But what I want you guys to realize is that there are all sorts of conservatarian, libertarian, Republican arguments that are true. So for instance, most poor people have central air. Most poor people have a refrigerator. Most poor people have a television. And so what Republicans argue, or what laissez-faire economics people argue, is that the poor realistically have it the best that they've ever had in history. Okay, they really do. Compare being a peasant in, I don't know, thousands medieval Europe compared to being a peasant nowadays. Being a peasant nowadays is infinitely preferable. However, people don't feel that way. And the reason why they don't feel that way is because they compare their material circumstances to their neighbors and to what they see in pop culture. So if you're working 50, 60 hours and your wife is working 10 to 30 hours in order to raise a family of one or two on the wrong side of the tracks, making barely enough money to survive, you're always behind on your bills, and you're in a neighborhood that's rough with bad schools where people are constantly getting murdered because they're part of the drug trade, you're not going to feel like you have it that good. And so as a result, raising the floor where people actually do have decent schools, people do have decent access to economic opportunity, people do feel like there's hope in their lives, people do feel like they are able to work a honest day's work for an honest wage that allows them to take care of their family and pay for their kids' extracurriculars and go and enjoy and go watch their kids' baseball game. If you violate the social contract to the point that the working class doesn't feel like they're getting a fair shake, they will go to radicalism. They just will. Descriptively, they will. And so I understand that the right wing is uncomfortable with addressing economic issues, but we're going to have to. Grassroots for 20, thank you for the donation, King. Libertarians get a card that says, I didn't vote for reparations. I bought my N-word pass from a black neighbor. Nice.
It seems like Democrats are often in a trap, which is Trump or one of his acolytes does something genuinely offensive, whether it's attacking or undermining a democratic institution or going after a vulnerable group of people, and Democrats want to defend those people, right? But then at times, sometimes they seem like they're writing their own version of the Federalist Papers, or they are doing what is then described as identity politics. And so how do you fight back against Trump when he's attacking people, when he's making an issue of marginalized groups, without then being seen by a broader group of being focused less on, say, the economy? Like, how do you square that circle?
Well, you know, I'm from North Omaha, Nebraska. Shout out to the Midwest people in the room. Yes, there are black people. There are black people in Nebraska all over this country. Maybe not North Dakota.
UQ actually corrected me and said that Mamdani got more than 50% of the vote. All right. Well, that's worse. Like that's worse.
And so I say that because earlier this summer, a black man who is a Democrat unseated a 3-term Republican mayor in Omaha, Nebraska. And we can clap for that. His name is John Ewing. And John Ewing, I grew up knowing John Ewing. I know him very well. But in that race, like in many other races across this country that have happened since 2024, one of the issues that the Republican candidate tried to, pull to the forefront were...
Real quick, I want to listen to this, but AKA Batusai says, do we think it's not bad that Biden and Trump are the best the two parties can offer us? We live in a gerontocracy, okay? Gerontocracy is where like the old people rule. We live in a gerontocracy, and there's a certain level of you have to pay your dues before you're handed the keys of power. There's a certain level of that. I don't think that it's a great way to run a society, but I think that the way that you run that society is by having competent middle managers and competent old people. So no, I don't think it's good that Biden and Trump are the best that we had to offer, but we've kind of lived in a society where we revere our elders for 200,000 years as a species.
Bathrooms and trans issues. And you know what John Ewing's answer was? Well, first of all, he had an answer. He put up an ad to answer the attacks, which I think is really important. You cannot let attacks go. You cannot allow your opponent, as a former strategist, you cannot have your opponent defining you and you not answering. So that's part of it. I think specifically coming out of 2024, a lot of candidates did not answer the attacks. And some people were just like, oh, no, that's not me. And it's like, well, who are you? But John Ewing put up ads and went out there and did speeches and was on the streets talking to folks during interviews and whatnot and campaigning and saying, she's doing this because she don't want to talk about the potholes. She doesn't want to talk about the issues that are affecting you. She's want to make up this issue that I'm not talking about. She doesn't want to talk about the potholes. And so I think the answer is not to run away from the confrontation. Like, you're not about to make me... As I used to always tell candidates, don't allow these folks, anybody, any of your opponents, to make you believe that you're for an issue that you've never taken up. Like, I don't know what the hesitancy is from some of the campaigns and the strategists over the last, couple of cycles to just not be clear about what folks are for and what they're not for. Because in 2024, that they, them ad was seen everywhere. And Black people in Philadelphia told me, the organizers in Philadelphia said that everybody had saw that ad and there was no counter, and they believed it. So I do think that, I don't think Democrats need to do a wholesale, like, you need a full brand rebrand, because I think, frankly, the
UQ says, I got my N-word passes from the black market. Chapingro for 5 says, some days you make me proud to be a Never Trump center. Some days you push me back towards libertarianism. This is one of those days. Listen, Chapingro, I get it. But at the same time, listen, I wish I could just be a libertarian, man. I wish I could just say, I still want to, let me win you back real quick, Chapingro. I want to reduce the individual tax rate. For people making under $200,000, it should be, I think that it should be like 10% for under 100, or for 100,000 or less. And I think it should be like 12% for under 200,000. $200,000, those people are not, they are doing well. They're doing excellent. That's like the middle class. But the middle class, for single people, they're being punished. The middle class single people are being punished. They're being punished because as soon as you start making more than $50,000 a year, they're taxing you at 22%. That's effing crazy. Okay. And then once you break 100K, you start getting taxed at 24%. That's crazy. And so kind of like, I know that a decade ago, 2 decades ago, a 6-figure salary was awesome. But nowadays, you need 6 figures. If you're running a family, you just need 6 figures to survive relatively well. And so that's where, for me, single middle-class people are getting screwed, and we need to totally reform that tax bracket. Like, looking at that, I was like, holy shit, I feel more libertarian looking at the individual tax bracket under 200K. So just because I want to take tax revenue and improve the educational, work opportunities and nutritional opportunities of the working poor and poor doesn't mean that I want to hurt the middle class and the lower class in order to do it. Nor do I want to penalize being rich to an extreme degree. I want to penalize being rich to a normal degree, a sane degree.
Democratic Party brand, it might never be popular. But what may be, and that's okay, because what you need are candidates who people like and they want to vote for and who they believe in. And if the brand is popular or not, I think the Democrats need to be less concerned about rehabilitating the brand of the Democratic Party apparatus and more concerned about running candidates that are close to the issues in the districts and places that they're trying to win.
Justin,
Tim don't agree. Tim don't agree.
I know. I mean, the brand is boned. I agree with
but
that.
the brand was poo-poo and people voted for Democrats anyway.
Yeah,
so to me, that says people are willing to support candidates even if they think your brand is shitty.
well, I think that
I don't know.
I think that's
Sometimes.
an important part of what I think the dynamic we see, right? Which is, there was just a report that came out that said, oh, here's a set of policies that are broadly popular that Democrats should embrace going into the midterms, and they're pretty moderate and sort of.
Oh, a bunch of these people that lost some races and had one recently put this report out.
Yeah, it was shocking. I for one was shocked when I saw that report. I was like, wow, so do the exact same thing that the Democrats have been doing that caused them a sequence of failures.
Okay, sorry. I'm just going to summarize this real quick because I think we're going to have to cut through the fluff because there is a lot of fluff here. For Tim Miller, I do think that he's like, ha ha ha, I'm more right-wing than you guys. And realistically, woke Sharia is pissing a lot of people off. So stop being so woke Sharia. He said it jokingly and amicably, but I still think that's a decent observation. What Simone something said is get representatives who are actually hooked into local issues to the point that they can talk to people's actual everyday anxieties and concerns. That's a valid point. Like, why are we fighting? Trans bathrooms hits because Republicans want to talk about trans bathrooms because it's a culture war issue where they can say Democrats are a bunch of like weird, degenerate sex freaks who are trying to get perverts to go into the bathroom with your daughter. And then because Democrats feel like they need to defend that, they say, oh, well, we love trans people, protect trans children, protect trans adults, this, that, the other. And then because of that, the insult, especially among conservative circles, sticks. That's a talking point that resonated with conservative circles. So I think what Simone brought up that's accurate is effectively saying, like, get a representative who is smart enough not to take the bait on trans issues and say, hey, they're trying to distract from the real issues. The real issues are your roads suck, your schools suck, your economic opportunities suck. We have, not only do we have, what do they call it? Brain drain. Not only do we have brain drain from the international community where we're stealing the world's best and brightest, we have brain drain from our local communities where kids in rural areas or smaller cities are not sticking around because they don't think that there's like sufficient economic and social opportunity. We need to rebuild our cities. We need to start thinking intelligently about how to cultivate strong businesses and industry. We need to do this. We need to do that. And you gotta localize it to the point that people are like, oh shit, actually, yeah, all of that stuff is way more important. So yeah, I think that's an astute observation from Miss Simone, even if it's annoying. Now, that being said, I do want to back up a second or two because I don't know what the study is that they're making fun of.
That's good. The Democrat, I for one,
Lost some race.
To the midterms, here's a set of policies that are broadly popular that Democrats should embrace going into the midterms, and they're pretty moderate and sort of.
Oh, a bunch of these people that lost some races and hadn't won recently put this report out.
Yeah, it was shocking. I for one was shocked when I saw that report. I was like, wow. So do the exact same thing that the Democrats have been doing that caused them a sequence of failures.
Wow.
That's good. I like that.
I knew there was no way.
Moderate enough. That was what the issue was.
There was no way I was going to get to the end of that sentence. I don't even know why I considered starting it. But
$205K, you're going to start getting hit at that 25%. And then once you're over $500,000, you're getting hit at the 33. I know that I have Oilers who make a lot of money, but sorry. Like you can cry about my tax rates on your jet ski. Okay. You can pull a Kenny Powers and you could be crying about a 33% tax rate on everything after $500,000. You can cry about it on your jet ski.
But, taken. But when I hear what you're saying there, when I see a report like that, I see a group of people struggling against a brand that is in the toilet and a bunch of people trying to win despite that, which is another way of saying we're in a ravine. Let's find the highest spot we can here in this trench that we're stuck in. But there's the reason I think this question is important, even if you're right, like people win despite disliking the Democratic Party, people hate Congress like their congressperson. I do think it's worth asking to what it is like to imagine a world in which Democrats are broadly popular. So,
how many gummies you take before coming out here?
So, which brings me to Jessica. So I'll reveal something to all of you, which is John, Tommy, and I share an office perfectly. And we often, if not more often than not now, switch over to Fox News during the day. And we do because we want to see what's happening over there. But also, it's entertaining. It is. They're having fun over there.
True story.
And Jessica, I want you to talk about like what it is like to be in that environment, because part of what is so fun is their just collective appreciation and shared view of Democrats, which is that they're kind of feckless and funny and ridiculous.
They definitely.
Okay. Grassroots says, when I get a raise, can we raise it to 230K? Yeah, sure. When whatever grassroots, so up to 100K for the individual tax rate will be 10%. Okay. 100K to whatever grassroots is making will be 12%. So whatever grassroots is making, that's the tax floor.
Enjoy that part of it. And I'm so glad that this conference is this week and not last.
Thanks, man. Sorry, this is a really good shout out. Wowman542 says, unrelated, but the Counterpoints sci-fi uploads kept me sane on long trade rides to Japan. So many thanks, King. Dude, my sincere pleasure. I'm going to do a quick shill for myself, okay? If you go to YouTube and you type in Counterpoint Star Wars and Counterpoint Sci-Fi, by the way, I think that I'm making good content because my Warhammer 40K content gets tens of thousands of views, and sometimes it gets hundreds of thousands of views, and I think it's good. I'm doing that in reference to Star Wars. So right here, I have the really, really, really good Old Republic cinematics. I have those did excellent, like 500, 300 views, 500 views, 700 views on a new channel with 300 subscribers. Thank you to 3 new subscribers within the past hour, by the way. And then I'm doing the rest of the breakdowns chronologically. So, of course, I started with the Acolyte, and the Acolyte kind of sucks, but the first 2 got decent viewership. And then even though this is the most action-heavy video, weirdly enough, this one got the least. But I think it's because it's so visibly the Acolyte. And then same thing with this one. It's so visibly the Acolyte that I think people they just didn't click on it as much, which is fine. The Acolyte is a mixed bag. But then Phantom Menace Part 1 did well. Phantom Menace Part 2 didn't do as well. I have no idea why. And then The Fall of Count Dooku didn't do well until I started posting it to Discord and whatever. But realistically, like, we're going to build up a decent library where you're going to be able to go through the entire Star Wars chronology in reference to media and have, like, not only is it going to be a decent narrative summary for stuff that you might not want to watch, but it's going to have all of the lore that you might not have known that would be interesting. And then Counterpoint Sci-Fi, the same thing. So I did a video called The Unified Timeline, where I took every science fiction thing that has existed ever. I actually took like 10 to 20 different science fiction universes, and I put them into a mega prehistory of Warhammer 40K. And now what I'm doing is I'm moving them through them chronologically. So I did do Prey, the Predator movie with Comanches. I did do Predator Killer of Killers, which is awesome and a very good TV series, and you should check it out. Then I did a trailer breakdown for Predator Badlands because that was getting released. And then I just did the Proto-Molecule Incidents, which I expected to be a smaller video. Because it's effectively taking the scene from Prometheus where that guy melts himself with black goo, and the scene from The Thing where they find out who the Thing is and then they blast it with a flamethrower. But I'm going through these things pseudo-chronologically, and eventually, dude, we're going to have Titanfall. We're going to have every Aliens TV show or every Aliens movie except for some of the AVPs. We're going to have all the Predator stuff. We're going to have the Expanse. We're going to have, I'm trying to think of what else. We're going to have the Avatar series, but of course, I'm going to be more favorable to the Marines than I'm going to be to the Native Americans. Yeah, so it's going to be a really, 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 really good time. So if you guys are a fan of science fiction, if you're a fan of Star Wars, if you're a fan of my Warhammer 40K channel, check out those other 2 channels. It's really good. And I think we're making good content, and eventually it's going to pop off. Anyways, sorry for the interruption. Sorry for the shill. Back to the content.
This week, because we'd all just be sitting around crying and looking at that memo and saying, well, this is 57% popular, so I think we should go with that. But now we have some wins, and we have this diverse set of wins, so I have had a way better couple of days.
Yeah, they've been almost circumspect.
Oh, yeah. I mean, sometimes they got a little rowdy too, but you can't dispute results like that. You can't dispute a Mamdani win and a Spanberger win and whatever happened in the Mississippi State House. And I'm obsessed with whatever a public commissioner is in Georgia. I still don't know.
When nobody shows up to vote, we win.
Yeah.
It's important to remember.
But the joy is important to the formula that makes Fox so appealing as a set of programs to watch. And I think about it in context of the joy campaign of 2024 that was not, right? We were being told all the time, like, you're having so much fun. Like, Brat's summer feels great. And I did feel great at the DNC because I thought that was the moment of, like, maybe we have a chance. But it was fleeting, and it's always on our side.
Bro. Topingo for 5 says, it's the uwu kawaii social construction without any discussion of incentives. Allah, we can just snap our fingers and make better cities to fix inequality. Sure, but let's talk about that deeper a different time.
I think since the 2016 election, it feels like it's forced upon us versus it's coming from within. There may be individual candidates that we're into. I've gotten super excited about people, down ballot all over the place, or, I love Ruben Gallego. Like, that's always fun for me to talk about. But because we have this kind of uniform policy of stay in line, it's joyless. Because you can't feel free to criticize somebody that you disagree with, or you're going to get scolded by this person and that person. And the Republicans, generally speaking, live free of that amongst themselves. I mean, criticizing Trump is a whole other thing, but they go about their business in a way that we don't, and that I think that we're adapting to, at least based on these election results. And Fox captures that there are people who have kind of like a shared core set of values maybe, but they're not taking themselves that seriously. They're not scolding each other. Like, it also matters in the quality of the programming. It looks great. Our graphics are beautiful. Our lighting is fantastic. Are you making a face?
Look, I'm your Fedayeen. I'm your biggest diehard fan. Okay, but no, I don't think the Fox News graphics are beautiful. Look, I respect what you do, especially because, like, if I had to sit next to Jesse Waters and Greg Buttfeld the entire time, I would kill myself. And the fact that you have been able to successfully sit in that room every day and just white knuckle through Jesse Waters' snide ass remarks is impressive.
Maybe that's the content that we need to steal. Maybe we need to watch some Jessica Tarlov, because it's my understanding that effectively she's in the lion's den, and she's really feisty and she throws elbows and all that kind of stuff. She throws elbows to the point that a lot of the Fox News audience wants her to get fired. But I think that it's the same thing, like when we watch a debate, bro, that we really, really, really don't like, but then chat's popping off and throwing out super chats and all that kind of shit. I think it might be the same thing with Jessica Tarlov, where effectively they hate her, but they love to hate her. Somebody did mention that there's a new Stargate show coming out. If it's good, maybe I'll break that down. Stargate SG-1, Stargate, the original movie, was one of my favorite movies as a kid. Like, having hard military, I know that it's probably corny now, but having like normal soldiers go through a portal into an alternate reality where people are worshiping alien parasites as Egyptian gods. And so the soldiers get their asses kicked by technologically more advanced Egyptian like parasite soldiers in like Horus and Anubis masks. That was one of the like coolest aesthetics ever. Honestly, just totally badass movie. But it is a little bit corny. And also it kind of fucks with some of the other sci-fi shit that I want to do. So that's kind of why I didn't break down the Stargate movie chronologically. And then same thing, somebody said, oh, you're going to do Stargate, but you're not going to do AVP. Listen, AVP 1, that was PG-13 and had some battles between humans, predators, and aliens, was okay. But the whole thing of like a random strong black female protagonist accidentally killing a xenomorph, and then the Yautja being like, oh, you're one of us now, let's be friends. That was so fucking corny to me that I wanted to rip my eyeballs out. I actually, the first time I saw that in theaters, I was like, why the fuck would a Yautja ever ally with a human? And I understand, like, it's because killing a xenomorph is actually so difficult that if you kill a xenomorph, even luckily, you're considered a badass. But that still just makes me cringe out of my skull. And then same thing with AVP versus AVP Requiem. The reason why that fucks up my timeline is because they nuke an American city, right? They nuke an American city in the early thousands. Now, you could say like, oh, well, it was an industrial accident and you never heard of it and this, that, the other. But I think part of the suspension of disbelief that I want to maintain is I want the science fiction breakdowns that I do to be plausible. Not plausible, possible. So for instance, like, I know Yautja aren't real, but couldn't it be that Native Americans fought aliens and then we just kind of been passed down this story that they fought monsters, that they were just like monsters of the forest? And as a result, like we dismiss it as mythology, but realistically it could have happened. I kind of like that suspension of disbelief where our world could become the science fiction world that we're talking about. So I don't know. It's one of my autistic quirks. In reference to Hasan being a douchebag, though, maybe we should check out Jessica Tarlov. Maybe she does good content.
It is.
Concur.
Thank you. And it is nice to be amongst my people, which I'm usually not.
Exponential Entropy says it's an incentive for marriage. Yeah, but I don't want to punish people. I don't want to punish people for being individually successful. Like, if you want to, I think 10% is fair. So if you want to bump the marriage tax rate to 10% or something like that, or if you want to bump the individual tax rate for people making more than 100K to 15%, we could dial it in. But at the same time, in this day and age, where making 200, sorry, you've inspired a rant. My apologies to the viewers, but I hope you enjoy my rants to some degree. When I was growing up, the economy was not this bad. Okay. McChickens and McDoubles were $1. Okay. A large soda was $1.29. And you could go out and buy weed for 25 bucks, 30 bucks with your boys. And if you were working minimum wage, it sucked. I'm not saying it didn't suck, but if you were making $8 to $10 an hour and you were living with your parents, or even if you had roommates, if you had 2 or 3 roommates and you were making $10 to $15 an hour, you could have 2 or 3 roommates and you could get by. Right? You could get by. But I think what's happened is the wages have stagnated for so long, and affordability, the cost of apartments, the cost of food, the cost of cell phone service, the cost of a car, the cost of car insurance, the cost of gas has crept up. And it's crept up for so long that now the way that you live when you were making 10 bucks an hour with 3 roommates is what you have to do to survive. And you actually, like, if you wanted to drink booze with your friends, if you wanted to smoke pot, if you wanted to hang out, if you wanted to party, if you wanted to do this, if you wanted to do that, you're actually making a choice between groceries and paying your cell phone bill on time and having a good time as a young person. And there was also an economic ladder that you could climb relatively easily, where if you got a 4-year degree in an in-demand field, you could get a 6-figure salary getting out of, like, go watch Waiting. Okay. If you go watch the movie Waiting, which is set in the early thousands, if you got an engineering degree, if you got a JD, like a law degree, if you got a medical license, if you got some kind of tech certificate or whatever, you could find a 6-figure job, or not a 7-figure job. You could find a 6-figure job. You had to be smart and you had to be talented, but if you were smart and talented, you could still get that relatively easily. And a 6-figure job meant basically you could do whatever the fuck you wanted. On $100,000 a year, you could have a trophy girlfriend or trophy wife. You could afford nice cars for the both of you. You could afford a house on the right side of town with decent education for your kids. You could afford your medical. You could afford your dental. You could afford a middle-class life on $100,000 a year. Whereas now, it seems like, to me anyways, I need $100,000 a year just to survive. Obviously, I'm only making like 80, so I am surviving off of 80. But 80 is just surviving between me and the wife. Like, between a mortgage, one decent car, car insurance, gasoline, commuting, groceries, cell phone bill, student loans, because I do have student loans. We just pay bills. That's all we do. And so for me, I want to restore. If the government is taking a quarter of your paycheck after $50,000, you're not living the same economic life that I was able to live 20 years ago. And it's partially the fault of the government, because they're taking 25% of your paycheck after 50K. And then same thing with after 100K to 200K. Listen, I love my 200K a year brothers. There's plenty of 200K Oilers in this chat who are just like, oh yeah, Connor, I'm doing good. Here's 50 bucks. Here's 100 bucks. Here's 20 bucks. Here's 5 super chats that are 10 bucks. I got plenty of Oilers who make 200K, but I don't even think that it's as easy for them as it was 20 years ago. because the cost of living has increased. So instead of getting jet skis or having an affair and getting a second family and being able to buy a Mercedes for cash, these guys have to budget too. And so that backslide economically is actually depressing to me. I'm sorry for the rant, but I hope it resonates with you guys. Yeah, I would probably, whatever economic incentive we would need for marriage through taxation, I would just increase the ceiling or increase the floor, I suppose. So if you're making less than 250K, maybe you pay a 15% tax rate. If you're making less than 100K as an individual, maybe you pay 10%. For a married family, maybe up to 150K, you pay 10%. And then after that, maybe you pay 12. And so there's still a moderate financial incentive from a tax basis to get married. But once again, I want professionals to have fun. And I want working class people to be able to survive with some level of dignity. Anyways, back to it.
Like cautiously weaving through here, but my point in bringing it up, and you don't have to love our graphics, even though they're copied in every movie and things like that. It's like the official look of it. But
yes, Fashion 40, Gundam. We can't forget Gundam. Thank you for your large donation. We will do Gundam, obviously.
But even when
The PR people love Jessica. She is a favorite of the Fox PR folks.
But nothing is taken that seriously. And that's not the case in liberal media. And that doesn't mean you're not talking about serious things, but there's this feeling like it is not the end of the world in every topic that you're discussing. And this idea that we can just go and show up in conservative spaces or, come for an hour and you have to be open to those kinds of things, like, doesn't capture how hard it is for people who vote like me and some of the things that I think to genuinely form bonds and interact on an ongoing basis with people who you disagree with. An hour, 2 hours, 3 hours is not getting to know the other side. Living amongst them and spending time with them is. And I think that's why I'm able to do my job and have a reasonable therapy bill, like not insane, but we know each other like the family that it looks like, which is dysfunctional, but it's still a family. And people who watch the show, and we have 20% Democratic viewership, like still get that.
Hasan,
I'm sorry,
no,
I know it's not maybe not the answer you guys wanted, but
I do
You're not getting a lot of claps because you're defending Fox News in this room.
Well, I think, let me speak. I want to talk to Hasan about what you just said. But before, I heard something from the crowd, and I think it reflects what they're feeling, which is, well, they're not taking it seriously because these are people that are not appreciating the consequences or are ignoring or telling themselves a story about the consequences. And I know you know that. But that's a challenge for the left. I think sometimes we are seen as upset or scolding because we're motivated by like a deep set of values. And when you watch Fox, there's a frivolousness to it, but maybe that's a kind of carelessness about what's happening to the country.
I totally agree with you about certain issues. Absolutely. And I make that very clear, and they can make fun of me or whatever, but elections have consequences. And we saw on Tuesday night that the American public sees through it. That's the point. Like, people get all hot and bothered about how conservatives are reacting to certain things and that they're being dismissive, but they are the ones that think the American public is stupid. And we're the ones who know that they can see what's going on. So whether you get 90 seconds of talk time or you get to talk for hours a day on your podcasts or on your live stream, all the things for Hasan, like.
Babylon 5 is not on the list, but I've had people mention it multiple times. So maybe I'll take a look at it. But for me, like Andromeda, Babylon 5, Star Trek, all that kind of stuff, they're TV shows, number one. So that would mess up the continuity where I would just be breaking down a TV show for like 10 seasons. But then not just that. I want like visceral, gritty, near future violence. I want blood and guts. I want fear. I want the nasty shit. So if it's kind of more like the corny action, not so much.
They're the ones that are doubting people's capacity to understand. And so I get what you're saying, and I feel it. And sometimes I don't like being made fun of sometimes for being upset about American citizens taken into ICE detention and not getting to call their loved ones. But
Or how about rural hospitals getting shut down and people dying? Or how about hundreds of thousands of people already projected to be dead as a result of USAID and PEPFAR cuts? Yeah. So actually, this is a point that I think she made that I am sympathetic to, which is politics should be fun. Like we talk about serious shit every single day, and sometimes I get pissed off, and sometimes I go on a crazy rant, and sometimes I'm just like super angry. But I also hope that you guys like have fun hanging out. Like I hope that I'm articulating things that you're pissed off about. I hope that you have fun making fun of some of the people that we watch. I hope that you have fun seeing some of their cringe, all that kind of stuff. But having fun, what they kind of made as a counterpoint is like, okay, well, the reason why you're having fun, or the reason why the people on Fox are having fun, is because they're economically and socially isolated away from the insulated is a better word, insulated from the consequences of their actions. They're all upper middle class. They're all middle class. And so as a result, if they get a tax break, but a few 100,000 people die, who gives a shit, right? Whereas with people who actually do care about broader humanity and do care about technocratically good policy, they might get pissed off if you kill several 100,000 people through incompetence. And I would argue that Donald Trump and the MAGA movement have killed arguably hundreds of thousands of people through incompetence. So I actually, I take both points quite seriously. Politics should be fun, but when you need to be pissed off, you should be pissed off.
Tuesday night, people showed up all over the country and said, fuck off. That is unacceptable.
This episode is brought to you by Blinds.com.
And I'm going to skip the Blinds.com advertisement. No offense, Blinds.com. Shout out to Blinds.com.
Hasan,
I got applause.
Hasan hasn't gone 17 minutes without talking since 2014.
The stage,
He's dying
the stage,
right now.
He's about to have an
stage is
anxiety attack.
vibrating, and I'm sorry it took this long to get to the fact that what we saw in New York on Tuesday in many ways feels like an antidote to some of this problem. You know, Zohran Mamdani is having fun out there, and he's also representing
This is gonna piss me off.
like incredibly enthusiastic base of people who are finding community in being part of politics. And that does seem like something now that is more easily formed on the left. I can think of all the candidates and campaigns that have been left driven, that have built that energy and enthusiasm and sense of fun. Brad Summer was an exception. There was a moment where, look, we can all look back and be like,
Thanks, Sacred Snow.
I went full Brad.
I mean, I was there.
We were, yeah.
And as someone who was there to the DNC before I got kicked out, but on the last day, I actually found myself feeling a sense of anxiety over the course of every single day that passed, where I was like, why is everybody just like celebrating like we're at the end zone here when it is not a guarantee that Kamala Harris is going to win? And I kept warning over and over again that there were a lot of unaddressed issues that the Democrats just kind of never wanted to acknowledge at all. And
Chapingro for 2 says, thank you for what you do, sir. Keeping me going today. Appreciate you, King. Thank you for the super chat.
Can we not just be excited we had somebody who could talk, though? Could we just have had 1 week? We were excited for a week because she could talk.
No,
but that was great. So like, just give us a break.
No, but the excitement that came into the DNC was actually because for some reason, right? And the reason is because people finally realized Joe Biden was, his brain was leaking out of his ear. I'm sorry. and for that reason, I know there's probably a lot of Democratic Party staffers in here. They're going to get really pissed off for me for saying this, but it almost felt like we had a competent party for once, and they were responsive to the people's needs. And that's the reason why everyone was excited. I was excited when I saw.
Listen, okay. I think what Simone said earlier is accurate, that get reps who are actually hooked into local issues. But I think Tim Miller thing is stop being so woke Sharia. Mamdani, realistically, I think he's woke Sharia. I think that he's probably giga progressive, super woke on trans issues, super woke on gay issues, probably super like xenophilic to the point where like I think people brought up in his commencement speech, he was talking about all the various New Yorkers who work in New York, and he effectively mentioned every single kind of person except for white Americans. Like he mentioned like Bengalis and Pakistanis and Indians and Hindus and Sikhs and Haitians and Dominicans and all that kind of stuff. And so he mentioned literally every single person but white people. Now, if you're being charitable, then you just go, oh, okay, well, he's trying to appeal to as broad of a coalition as possible, and the white people are assumed within his rant. But if you're skeptical and you do think that this guy is woke Sharia, then you're effectively like, he's probably not including whites in his, speech, because mentioning white working class people would the wokes and the progressives are already with you. The white guilt liberals are already with you. And if you mention the white working class, then you might be looking, number one, you'll probably be seen as pandering. But number two, you might alienate some of the people who view like white working class as either rivals or enemies because the white working class broke for Trump. So that's where, for me, I would emphasize Mamdani's success on hooked into local issues, where his campaign was effectively like, I'm going to deal with the cost of living when it comes to housing. I'm going to deal with the cost of living when it comes to transport. I'm going to focus on the things that actually affect you on a day-to-day basis. I'm going to focus on making sure law enforcement is prioritized so you don't feel like you're an enemy combatant within your own city and your enemy is law enforcement. Like, those are the things that New Yorkers probably wake up every single day and worry about. And then he also did it within a charismatic package. So maybe this is cope, but I would think that the getting hooked into the local issues and not being overtly woke Sharia, and then on top of that, not hooking into the socialism and the communism and being uniquely charismatic is how Mamdani did it. Whereas I think that what Hasan is probably about to do, I could be wrong, is he's probably going to emphasize the more socialistic policies. So let's take a look and see how Hasan spins it.
Kamala Harris chose Tim Walz when she could have just as easily gone with Josh Shapiro, for example. I was like, oh my God, is this happening? Is there like an actual progressive momentum backing this candidacy, backing this campaign? And then they backpocketed him. And Kamala Harris went from saying that she was going to do price controls, and she actually very decently messaged around that by saying, we're just going to go after price gougers, right, at the grocery store, which was her most popular policy at the time, and directly addressed one of the main economic anxieties that people were experiencing. And then, lo and behold, her brother-in-law, who's head of legal at Uber, came on and was like,
I think Melody said this doesn't sound very Republican of you. Number one, Trump is winning off of economic populism. Number two, it doesn't matter. Like economics is coming for you whether you like it or not. The days of just having Republicans ignore the economy and cut taxes, those days are fucking over. It's over. Okay? In my opinion, it is so bad out there. I was talking to my rich friend who was putting himself through college. I was talking to him about cost of living issues in 2012, and they've only gotten worse. And political radicalism is only getting worse. So if you don't address the economics, you're fucked.
Cut this economic populism shit out. And then you had $50,000 in tax credits for small business owners, and that was not addressing the problems that people were experiencing. And I think that we have to do the honest autopsy of this campaign and realize that maybe people were excited for the progressive momentum that they perceived the campaign actually was going to have, and the responsiveness that the party finally had to the people's desires, to the base of voters' desires. But then they kind of just threw that into the wind and just kept pumping Liz Cheney and refuse to talk
Cheney.
about.
Sorry for wanting to help. Poor Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney, can I just do one thing on the honest autopsy though? Because here, I actually we can find some common ground on the economic populist stuff. I think that Kamala should have probably, in retrospect, obviously, had a more tangible message on economic populism. My problem with the walls thing though is that that relates to the topic of this panel is that I think if we're having an honest autopsy and looking back at the campaign, there were a lot of liberals that live on the coast that were like, whoa, this dude can change a carburetor and I can put on a camo hat. Like he's gonna really that guy is really gonna connect with rural America because he seems like a guy that really connects with rural America. And people who grew up in rural America who lived in red spaces are like, no, like that is the guy who was the PFLAG teacher at the rural high school. And by the way, being the PFLAG sponsor at a rural high school is awesome. That's a great thing to be. That everybody loves that. That's great. But like everybody who's from that world did not look at him and say, you code conservative, or like you have conservative values like me. They coded him. It's like, oh, you're the nice liberal at the school, right? And so I think that if we're going to have an honest reflection on the last campaign, the economic populism stuff was a miss for sure, but being seen as being to the cultural left and being out of step with the country culturally on a wide variety of issues, whether it be social issues or COVID or free speech or just being able to chill on comedians podcasts, like that was a miss, and it was and people misunderstood what Tim Walz was bringing to the table. Because he was not able to do any of that.
Yeah, I think the cultural stuff is only relevant if that is ostensibly the only thing that you're bringing to the table. And unfortunately for the Democratic Party, I mean, these used to be wedge issues for a reason, right? These were concocted in think tanks with the deliberate design to make it seem as though there was some significant disagreements between the two parties, and they were created to make the Republicans more popular so that people would focus on whatever, the family foundation decided was a more successful way to present anti-trans narratives after focus testing their message. And more, when people are focusing on that, they're always going to go, okay, well, the Democrats are silly. Why do they care about this? This is like a tiny sliver of the population. Instead, they should, like, every moment that they're talking about that is a moment where they're not talking about like affordability, where they're not talking about like a working class centered party.
Where are the Democrats that ran on trans issues? Show them to me, people. Where are they? They did it.
No, I
They
agree.
did it.
I agree. They did not.
Oh no. Sorry. I kind of love this. I love Simone's passion because normally I would expect Simone. I'm not gonna lie. When I look at a shaved head black woman dressed in fancy garb, who's a commentator on, is she on CNN? She's on something. Yelling at Hasan Piker saying, where did the Democrats run on trans issues? Okay. I'm just gonna tell you, that 2019 Kamala clip of her saying like, oh yeah, we got trans healthcare for federal prison inmates and I'm super proud of that. I really care about trans issues, blah, 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 blah. The 20s were weird, man. The early 20s were weird. The late 10s were fucking weird. You guys were super woke. Like, I know libs don't want to hear that. They just want to be like, no. We were super moderate. We were super chill. No, you weren't. You might have been on an individual level, but I'm telling you, the cultural zeitgeist was super fucking woke. And the mainstream politicians were doing super fucking woke shit. At the DNC, some lady said, we as white people need to learn how to sit back and shut up. And she got applause. Like seriously, like do you understand how bad that sticks in people's minds? So hold on. What was it? Bill Nye the Science Guy. I know this is like, you're like, Connor, you're bringing up old shit. The Science Guy ice cream orgy. I don't know if this is going to pop up. Oh, yeah. This is by Riley Delicious and whatever. So 8 years ago. Forgive me, but
James Max.
Bill Nye the Science Guy, who was like everybody's favorite. Whenever the teacher rolled out Bill Nye the Science Guy on the LCD TV in high school and middle school, Bill Nye Saves the World. We were excited that Bill Nye the Science Guy was coming on to talk to us about like random science shit. Okay. But what happens is we had whatever this was, which was some progressive lady rapping about shit. And then also there's this argument about like, there was like vanilla ice cream that was like like representative cis heterosexual sex. And then by the end of the thing, they're like, oh, being gay is cool and being trans is cool and being bisexual is cool. And by the end of it, everybody jumps into a giant bowl and has an ice cream orgy. Do you know how fucking weird that was? To see your like middle school, high school science teacher tell you to stop being such a stiff and to go have like pansexual orgies? That was weird as fuck. And then not just that, white people need to sit down and shut up DNC. This was fucking crazy.
Black Lives Matter, and it makes me sad that we're even having that conversation, and that tells me that white leaders in our party have failed. We have to accept that there is prejudice that exists within our own party, and we have to be able to have that conversation. We cannot sweep that under the rug. We cannot, don't get it. I'm a white woman, I don't get it. I am pleased and honored to be here today to have the conversation. I am so excited that we're here, and I am listening because that's my job. My job is.
This entire speech makes me want to kill myself. Okay, I get it. She's the Idaho Democratic Party executive director. That's already a position of power within the Democratic stuff. And she was running for the DNC chair candidate. And I'm assuming she lost. But you understand that, like, her saying this shit, it was like, oh, a white woman running for the DNC is saying white people need to sit back and shut up. Fuck you. Okay, this did lasting damage. Let's do Kamala Harris, trans prison inmates, because Kamala Harris was woke.
For prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that. Kamala.
So anyways, like 5-second clip. Hold on, here we go.
I learned that the California Department of Corrections, that they were standing in the way of surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. And there was a specific case. And when I learned about the case, I worked behind the scenes to not only make sure that that transgender woman got the services she was deserving. So it wasn't only about that case. I made sure that they changed the policy in the state of California so that every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access to the medical care that they desired and need.
Now, if you're talking about like transgender adults, we can have this like technocratic debate about whether or not transgender inmates are deserving of taxes, like taxes being paid for their transgender surgery while they're incarcerated or whatever. We could have like a technocratic argument about it. And truth be told, I'm not that passionate about it. However, the way that this was spun, what Kamala Harris was doing, by the way, because I think this was in the 2019 run, she was virtue signaling. They were saying, what have you done for the trans community? And she says, I made it so, male to female inmates who are, or man to woman inmates who are in the California penal system, I made it so at taxpayer expense, they could get surgery. What? We can argue about medical necessity. We can argue about adult transgender people. We can talk about what is it? Gender dysphoria. We can talk about all that shit. You want to have a technocratic conversation, that's fine. but she did that's absolutely a fucking virtue signal. And that virtue signal was because it was in vogue at the time. And they took that clip and they beat the fuck out of her with it. So sorry, I've been going for like 5 minutes, but the whole point is like, when Democrats and when progressives say wild shit, those clips live on in the cultural zeitgeist for years, if not decades. I'm still shocked by the ice cream orgy from Bill Nye the Science Guy. Anyways.
The Republicans.
But you actually brought that up, and I 100% agree with you.
Okay, good. Sorry, I jumped out my seat.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you because you said the potholes, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're talking about the potholes and your opponent is constantly being like, but what about trans people? Then they look insincere and they look silly. And there is no reason to betray marginalized groups and decide that we're going to actively write them out of the equation because they're working class as well. And this is something that I have never compromised on, and yet seemingly I've been able to find like a very populist and robust movement in my own audience that does not compromise on these issues, but also is always in the affirmative, making the argument that we have to focus on kitchen table issues, if you want to use that kind of language around it, but like center the working class and try to seek out what their problems are, address them.
Him always being a fucking sock dumb in public pisses me off, but that's okay.
And also make this earnest attempt and show that we are honest about actually fighting for them.
Please, God, don't mention Wakanda. I'm actually good with Wakanda, man. Do you know what the funniest thing about Wakanda is? Wakanda. Okay, so let's look at Wakanda real quick. Wakanda warriors. Okay, so look at the Wakandan warriors. All right, they're the bodyguards of the king are all females. Okay, the Wakandan warriors are all females. Do you know what that's based off of? Guys, do you know what that's based off of? The female warriors of Benin. No. No. No, the Benin female warriors. Do you know what Benin is most famous for? Slavery. Like, it was, you know what they're known for? Really, really, really bad slavery. Benin slavery. Dude, Benin was a warrior kingdom in West Africa that was like super famous for being competent warriors. They're basically like the female Spartans of their era who were actually, like, relatively speaking, militarily competent. Movie about Benin warrior king woman. Dude, this is one of the funniest movies ever made, and I need to watch it sometime. I have to watch this movie. They get this chick, the gladiator of our time. Amazing. They took this chick, I think it's Viola Davis. She's like a relatively serious actor. She's been in a bunch of stuff, and she plays a Benin female warrior. And I think they fight a battle to like save the kingdom or something, and it might be against a rival tribe. But I think there's female. I think there's Europeans involved too somehow, and they just totally ignore the fact that like Benin at one point, I swear to God, Benin was like responsible for 80% of the slaves sold in the transatlantic slave trade during like a certain decade or a certain like 50-year period. Benin was like the most egregious slave state in West Africa. And so Wakanda, taking aesthetic inspiration from one of the worst slave kingdoms in West Africa, is one of the most fucked up and funny things to ever happen to progressivism, in my humble opinion.
For them. And I think Zoran's campaign and its success was a fantastic example of this. I know people say it's in New York, but that's precisely what he did. 5 key issues. He went out, he asked people.
Beef Supreme, no offense. You're not a liberal. You're a gay libertarian. If you're isolationist and you think that like people just need to get good and bootstrap, you're a fucking libertarian, bro. I hate to break the news to you. You're a libertarian.
What's your problem? I'm going to solve it. And he centered his campaign around 5 key issues of affordability in New York. And lo and behold, in spite of 22 billionaires spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to take him out, in spite of a very hostile media environment, especially leading up to the primary, or certainly after the primary, they genuflected a little bit by the end. But and all of these attack ads, he still won.
Yeah.
Cameron Mosley said that shit made me vote for Trump. Dude, he's probably not joking.
I want to tease out.
No, it's your show.
I want to hear what you
I am your guest.
God, this is going great.
Are we having fun yet?
I'm at it. Are we having fun yet? No, Jessica, I want you to respond, and then I want to kind of tease 2 things out here.
Well, I agree. I totally agree. I just exist in a world where we can't behave that way. Like, not everybody who's going to run for office or who wants to have a voice can build the platform that you have. You're ridiculously talented, and
Damn, thank you.
no, but even being able to talk that long, or it's a skill set that
Damn, bro.
who wants to have a voice can build the platform that you have. You're ridiculously talented, and
Damn, thank you.
no, but even being able to talk that long, or it's a skill set that I don't have. But when you say we don't need to deal with this, and I agree with you about the ad, and I remember when that happened, there are people who are running in races where you need to do more than that. Like we were talking earlier, I was over doing Tim's pod with him. We're talking about Jared Golden not running in Maine. And Jared Golden can't afford to win, to not talk about the issues that his constituents genuinely care about, because they also vote for Donald Trump. And for some of them, they just want to hear someone say, listen, I want to protect everybody. I'm an inclusive guy, but whatever happened with Leah Thomas, or that's always like the lightning rod, trans athlete issue. I understand your concern about, trans women in women's sports. That doesn't mean Jared Golden needs to say, I want a ban on this. It means Jared Golden says, like the head of the NCAA did when they testified, this is, you're talking about 10 athletes out of 500,000. So it is a small fraction of the population, but I'm not going to dismiss your concerns. And this big tent and a winning coalition across this country.
See, Rachel P says, good God, just give them the boob job and the hormones. It doesn't hurt anyone. Conservatarians and conservative taxpayers don't see it that way.
Has to be compromising about what people need to do to win their races. I'm not talking about being bigoted. I'm talking about being bigoted. You should be like a little bit bigoted, okay? Like the fun racism, not the racism, the fun racism, okay? The fun level of bigotry where you rib your friend because you know your friend can take it and your friend ribs you back. We need just a smidge. Just like if there's legitimate racism and then there's like making a racist joke to your friends, and let's say legitimate racism is 100% racist, and let's say like making racist jokes to your friends is 10% racism, you guys need to move towards 10% racism. Nasty, but the country operates differently in different places. And I feel like we give lip service to that, but don't always behave that way.
The thing is, like, if the Democratic Party was defined by 5 key policies, okay? Medicare for all, a single payer system, socialized medicine, right? Something
which isn't even that popular, you idiot. Even Europe has multi-payer systems. Fuck. Dude, it pisses me off. Sorry, it pisses me off that AOC, Bernie Sanders, Hasan Piker, probably Zoran Mandami, let's be real, lots of progressives or whatever. The reason why they say Medicare for all is because Medicare pulls well with old people, and realistically, people want access to health care. And so they think that by combining universal access to healthcare with the concept of something that polls well, that they'll be able to argue that to the American people. But technocratically, it's actually like a dog shit policy. As far as I know, Medicare is already a third of the federal budget, because what happens is taxes go in, they're not put into an investment vehicle, and then the taxes go out. That's the way that Medicare currently works, and that's the way that Social Security currently works as well, is there's no investment vehicle that takes the money, turns it into more money, and then sends it out. It's like instantaneous. It goes to the federal government, then it goes straight out to payments. And so as a result of not having an investment vehicle, there's just not enough money. And so a third of our government spending is already Medicare. Another third is already Medicaid. Or it might be like 25% or 22% or 27% or some shit, but it's a lot. Okay. It's like a lot. So I think 40% overall is just medical spending between Medicaid and Medicare. So you're saying, let's move to a single payer. Most European countries don't have single payer. They have a public option, and then they have private insurance that gets you the Gucci shit. So, and then also like the NIH has its own problems, like the NHI or whatever, the British version, the UK version. Like how many countries, I'm going to Google it real quick. I know it's probably boring, but I'm going to Google it real quick. How many countries have single payer healthcare? There's no exact number of countries with single payer healthcare, but it's generally considered to be in the range of 16 to 17 countries, including like Canada, the UK, Sweden, and Taiwan. But I don't even think that's necessarily true. Is Canada single payer healthcare or multi-payer? Canada's system is a single-payer universal healthcare system for medically necessary services, meaning a single public system funded by taxes covers these core services for all citizens. However, the system has elements of multi-payer because its private insurance covers services not included in the public plan. That's what I'm saying. So single-payer is kind of like a misnomer. Medicare for all is more extreme than European or Canadian healthcare. Anyways, back to it.
Something of that sort. And a plan to expand the available housing units. I want socialized housing. That is not even broached. That's not even discussed amongst the Democratic Party. I want
because it's socialism, dumbass.
A federal jobs guarantee and a jobs program to build those houses, right? Free college and better education overall from K through 12. If those were like your 5 key signature campaign promises that directly tackle all of the issues that people, the economic hardships that people in the heartland are actually going through, and not just like, highly educated liberals in big cities, then any moment that these people would turn around.
Beef Supreme says, you just want to slap labels on me for some reason. I love slapping labels on people. Black, gay, Jew, Hispanic, Turk. I love labels. Labels are my favorite. But anyways, I want to address this real quick because we're talking about Benin and West Africa and Wakanda. Thanks, Christian Valeris, for bringing it up. Real quick, I did a West African college class. I did West Africa all the way up to 1860, I think it was. And so it did talk about colonization and all that kind of stuff. And we did read a book called Things Fall Apart. And Things Fall Apart is a book that is supposed to be hailed anthropologically as one of the best books that like documents pre-colonial African society and also the impact of of colonialism. And what's interesting is that it's not a perfectly rosy picture of African society pre-colonialism. As an example, one of the things that was common during that time was for twins. Twins would be infanticided because it was viewed as voodoo. It was viewed as magic. And so if you had baby girl or baby boy twins, they would take twins, they would put them in clay jars and throw them out into the woods until they died of exposure. And one of like the introductory things was the fact that the narrator or whatever, I don't even know if the narrator might have been third person, but they were talking about the perspective of one of the characters. And one of the characters was horrified because they basically had to listen to these children cry for hours, like for a day, until they finally died of exposure. And then also there was like their guy, one of the protagonists, was a valued warrior of the tribe. He was like a strong guy. He was a strong agricultural farmer. He was like a good warrior who had fought in battle. Well, because he was like a revered character in the tribe, he took the hostage from another tribe. So another tribe, in order to broker peace between their tribes, they took the young child, like a teenager, basically like a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, as a hostage so they could maintain peace between the tribes. Well, what ended up happening, I don't know, halfway through the book, a third of the way through the book, is that treaty breaks down. And so this guy has to go into the woods, and he's developed like a paternal relationship with this 10 or 12-year-old boy, but the truce is violated. So he has to kill him. So him and like another 6 men from the village walk out into the woods with this kid, and the kid thinks that they're just going on another hunting trip. He thinks that they're just going on like another oh, me and the boys, we're just going on out an adventure. And then they hack him to death with machetes. This is all like pre-colonialism, by the way. And then what ends up happening is a British colonial government comes in and tries to take taxes. They get into like a musket fight and a machete fight. This guy kills one of the diplomats for the colonial government, so he has a murder warrant out for him. He can't resist the colonial authorities, and so ultimately he hangs himself and kills himself. And it's like a really depressing book. It's a really fucked up book. But my West African history professor, he was like, well, what do you think of the book? You know, like, what do you think? Was colonialism good? Was it bad? What was kind of the thing? And because this was early 2010s, a lot of my fellow college students were giving like woke answers. They were like, oh yeah, it was so bad when the Brits came in, they fucked up their society, and they fucked up the indigenous society, and they fucked up this and they fucked up that, and you know, they dispossessed this man of his role in society, and this, that, the other. And my answer, which my West African professor was from West Africa, like he was from Nigeria or some shit, and I was like, well, that depends on whether or not you're a twin, right? And the guy, he kind of like pointed to his head, and he kind of pointed at me a little bit. And I think that was one of the points of the book, Things Fall Apart, is like, yeah, colonialism, totally fucked up. Slavery, death, murder, this, that. But people have this like noble savage narrative about indigenous Americans and about West Africans, and it's just not true. Pre-colonial societies, maybe they would have been better if colonialism wasn't as brutal, but pre-colonial societies weren't perfect. And yet progressives, and to some degree liberals, they kind of like sanitize pre-colonial societies as if they were noble savages. Anyways, back to it.
To be like, well, what about trans people? They're going to get healthcare too. You could just be like, okay, what do you not want healthcare because you think a trans person is going to get it?
Well, I just want to be clear. There was a moment on a debate stage where they weren't talking about trans people, but in the Democratic primary in 2020, they asked, there was one of the large primary debates, and they asked, well, do you think undocumented people should have healthcare? And people raised their hand, and it was used as an attack ad. And
Hell yeah, it was.
It was an effective attack ad. So I think sometimes I agree with some of what you're saying. Okay, the dig at small businesses, I disagree with, because the biggest driver of wealth in African American communities outside of government jobs, which is why the fact that 300,000 Black women have lost their government jobs is a blow to like wealth ascension in this country for Black women, is small businesses. And so the small business plan was a plan that spoke to working class Black and brown people in this country who do not work at large corporations, but had an idea, wanted entrepreneurship, and then they saw a plan for them. And so it was a wide, tense situation. But I guess my point is to Jessica, what Jessica is saying, yes, I do think candidates have to be, you got to run for your district. You got to run for the race that you're in. I'm a Black woman from the Midwest every day, everywhere I go. Okay, I live in Washington D.C., but I'm Black and I'm bald. So there are some things I think I hear when these conversations come up, and I've said in strategist rooms when they've come up on campaigns I've worked on, and I hear them on the sets and the commercial breaks when we have some of these candidates on our show. It feels like to some people that look like me that the people within the party apparatus want folks to compromise on issues that for me are uncompromisable. When folks say that. And so, like, I do think that if the party is like, look, people need to, I think the answer is people need to run for the race that they're in. Okay, well, what does that mean? Does that mean because let's be very clear, Donald Trump and the Republicans, they aren't looking for a big tent. They're like mass deportation, F you, look at my one good black person, shithole countries in Africa, all the brown people need to be deported. Women got blood coming down their eyes.
Like, Turk was the worst insult there. Turk's not supposed to be an insult. I know the way that I said it, it sounded like an insult, but those were just descriptors. Nice.
But like, yay, we're going back to a meritocracy, and that means only white men. Like, hold on, what? But they were winning. And so they didn't win because they opened up the aperture and let people do what they need to do. They won because they tripled down on what they believe, even if what they believe.
Right. That's just not. I'm sorry. That sounds good, and I like it. I want it to be right. It's just not right.
They didn't win because they tripled down on what they believe.
No, they did triple down on what they believe.
Yes, they tripled down on racism.
Yeah.
It was populism, but populism is a thin ideology mixed with a thick ideology, according to Cass Mudd.
Simone,
His populism had a lot of things in. It was an economic populist, but populism.
Dang, bro. Look at this body language. Leaning in, loud, yelling into the mic, all that kind of stuff. Tim needs to stop sitting his white ass down and needs to stop listening, and he needs to sit up, lean forward, and engage.
Had a little white supremacy in it, a little racism. Like, Bernie Sanders is a populist in a different way than Donald Trump.
Yeah, here's the thing.
So I don't understand.
Here's the thing, though. Can I just say really quick, though? Here's the thing. Like, yeah, he doubled down on a bunch of terrible shit that they believe that's extreme. No doubt. No doubt.
Connor's neighborhood professor looks at Connor, the scene from Training Day. Yeah, he said Monica.
He also was seen as left of Kamala on foreign policy. He was seen as an anti-war candidate. He was seen as anti the Republican establishment on war. He cut to the middle on that.
Yeah, he lied about that for sure.
He's a liar.
He lied.
Yeah.
He lied.
But then maybe our guy should lie about some things that are popular too.
Okay.
Now
you sound like.
Sorry. I missed a moment because I saw Doobie jumping in on the racism train, so I wanted to read that with my full intent. Let me rewind it 2 seconds because it looks like Tim Miller is actually fighting people for a second.
Way than Donald Trump.
Yeah, here's the thing.
So I don't understand.
Here's the thing, though. Can I just say really quick, though? Here's the thing. Like, yeah, he doubled down on a bunch of terrible shit that they believe that's extreme. No doubt. No doubt. He also was seen as left of Kamala on foreign policy. He was seen as an anti-war candidate. He was seen as anti the Republican establishment on war. He cut to the middle on that.
Yeah, he lied about that for sure.
He's a liar.
He lied.
Yeah.
He lied.
But then maybe our guy should lie about some things that are popular too.
Okay.
Know.
Now you sound like.
I hope that's a joke. I hope that's a joke. But that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay, guys. Listen, this is exactly, no offense to Pisco, but this is exactly why I want to stay a never Trump Republican. Okay? Because what's happened is Tim, since now he's the token never Trump Republican who's been sucked into the Democrat, now he has to be on stage with a fucking socialist and a giga progressive, and he has to argue about why their ideas are bad, and 80% of the audience is gonna fucking hate him for it. And also, instead of actually, like, I don't know, standing on business and saying, no, you're fucking wrong, he has to do this like tepid thing where he kind of like jabs at him, but he's joking. And I'm not saying, I'm sure Tim Miller is more aggressive on other panels. So I'm not trying to like totally knock the guy, but that's not the corner that I want to paint myself into. When I'm fighting Republicans, I don't have to be apologetic about my perspective at all, because my perspective is rooted in Republican history. My perspective is rooted in Burkean history. It's rooted in constitutional, social, fiscal, Burkean conservatism. I don't have to back down from a fucking thing. So yeah, 80% of the audience is booing me, but I'm right and they're wrong. Whereas when you're the token never Trump Republican guest within the Democratic Party, you're effectively a guest. You are there as long as they're willing to tolerate you. Republicanism is my philosophical home. Conservatism is my philosophical home. I'm not violating anybody's personal space by reasserting the principles that made these ideologies great. I'm trying to remind the CUNTS, the see you at next Tuesdays, who have stolen, perverted, and destroyed my ideology. I'm reminding them of what they're supposed to be. Whereas in a Democratic circle, it's a coalition for political power. And once again, this is my criticism of the Bulwark. By becoming Democrats, they have conceded that they must go along to get along when the Democrats say dumb shit. And that's just not a concession that I'm willing to make. So it's not. Sorry. Doobie says that sort of narrative exists for colonists, though, the old white savior thing. Sure. But as an example, widow burning in India. The end of widow burning in India. There was sati. So sati was a historical Hindu practice in which a widow burns alive on her deceased husband's funeral pyre, either voluntarily or by coercion or by a perception of the lack of satisfactory options for continuing to live. Although it's debated whether it received scriptural mention in early Hinduism, it has been linked to related Hindu practices in the Indo-Aryan speaking regions of India. So there was a British governor. And by the way, like, I'm not totally sweeping for the Brits. Like, the Brits got opium from Pakistan and Afghanistan and then forced the Chinese to buy opium at gunpoint. All right? There's nothing more fucked up than that. However, there was maybe it's James Atkinson, I don't know. But there was some Indian governor who I don't know the guy's name. Somebody could look it up and they could tell me. But effectively, he saw a widow burning, and he was like, "That's so fucked up. We can't tolerate that shit." And a lot of people around him, including like Hindu people, were like, and British governors, British politicians and diplomats, they said, "Hey, listen, that's just an Indian tradition. If you fuck with that, they're going to try to kill us." And he said, "You know what? I thought about it. Fuck that. They're not allowed to do that." And so what he told the locals, if I remember, is that, okay, widow burning is your tradition. My tradition is hanging murderers. Anybody who does a widow burning after this date, they'll be hung. And as a result, the practice disappeared virtually overnight. And so the whole point of this is like, yeah, did the Brits do fucked up shit? I'm sure. You can come up with all sorts of things about, I don't know, the Bengali famine under Churchill, or British oppression or murder or genocide or massacre or whatever. I'm sure you can come up with a million things where I will say, yes, the British are bad. But in that specific example where that British governor said, "Oh, your tradition is burning widows. My tradition is hanging murderers. This ends today." That's based. That is absolutely based. Ending moral wrong, regardless of your ethno-religious cultural context, is based.
Like me during the campaign, where I was like, what the fuck are you guys doing when you're not like addressing this stuff where Donald Trump can present himself as the peace candidate? That was insane to me. But obviously, sending Bill Clinton to Dearborn to talk about Judea and Samaria, as most people were seeing.
All right.
Most people were seeing.
I want to bring us back.
Children on their timeline every day. It was unacceptable.
Where does my hatred for Tim come from? It's not a hatred. I just think that they sold out a little bit. And by the way, the sellout is practical. Becoming the right wing of the Democratic Party is smart from a coalition perspective. I think it just concedes the right wing to insane people. And I'm not willing to do that. Not yet, anyways.
Moderate on things, that's all I'm saying.
I'm having so much fun.
No, I'm sorry. You cannot have a convention where you have signs that say mass deportation now.
I'm not saying he wasn't a moderate. I'm saying he moderated on things.
Ethnocentric nationalist version of this country, and say that he moderated. What he did is say, people in Gaza, you should vote for me because Joe Biden ain't doing what you want. That's not a moderation. He had good rhetoric, but his policy was consistent. And the vice president on that debate stage said all of the things that he was saying that he would do, and he has outdone them. He said he was going to send the military into the streets. He was saying it on the campaign. That's not moderation. That's fascism. He said he was going to deport all of these people.
Dude, if I had to do this, I would have a fucking headache right now. Like I'm borderline getting a headache. I'm not even in the room, and I know that's racist. I know it's racist for me to get a headache, but she is very passionate.
In this country.
Yeah.
That is what he said, that it's not just the criminals. He's coming for anybody that is in this country who is undocumented. So I can't get with the, well, Donald Trump didn't moderate a bit. No, they tripled down on the bad stuff and had nice graphics and good and smiled through it.
What have they conceded? Well, the same day that Kamala Harris was tweeting about gun control, they were like, yeah, Kamala's based. I love Kamala. Everybody get out to vote. Go vote for Kamala. And once again, I said vote Kamala. But I also said I'm voting for the lesser of two evils. And there are pretty deep philosophical differences between myself and a Kamala Harris presidency. And as a result, I'm still going to keep my moral qualms. I just think on the whole, if you do a moral calculus, the Democrats are clearly the lesser of two evils. There's a difference between that and saying, oh yeah, Kamala's best. Kamala's awesome. Kamala's so brat right now. Like, no, there's a substantive difference between saying, hey, this sucks, but I'm going to pinch my nose and I'm going to do it, versus this is awesome. You know, and I saw enough Tim Miller shorts enthusiastically endorsing Kamala Harris that it rubbed me the wrong way.
So I want to bring us back.
Simone is
all right, okay. Hasan, quick, and then I want to bring us back.
Simone is absolutely.
Fatsimo says, didn't Burke blame Jews for upsetting the natural order? Listen, I don't even know if he did that, but Edmund Burke was let's just say he's a product of his time.
Absolutely right, 100%. And these were things that I was screaming about nonstop.
You
but
said
there
you
was
agreed
also
with me that he ran to the left of Kamala on foreign policy.
On foreign
That's
policy.
moderating. He
on foreign policy.
He didn't run on the unpopular Republican views on foreign policy.
He ran to the left on foreign policy only because the Democrats came out and said, I'm going to have the most lethal military, because unfortunately
that was where I was like, damn, I could vote for Kamala. Having the most lethal military, I was like, all right, I could check this box a little bit harder.
And I mean this sincerely, I don't think the Democrats actually saw the threat of Donald Trump as a significant enough threat, because if they were, they would have locked in and had better messaging overall and tried to at least establish a base of support with counter narratives, with counter messaging leading up to the election.
Purple Politics says, do you think that Tim Miller is going to come back to the Republicans once MAGA dies? Maybe.
Not in the aftermath or not during the election, but leading up to the election, because Republicans, they act as though there is an election every single day. They are constantly on message. They're constantly creating an alternative reality with lies.
Girlhotism is the idea of the savage non-white while downplaying the evils of brutal early colonialism, apparently. No, it's not. You could tell me any colonial story you wanted to tell me. You want to talk about, dude, apparently the Portuguese and the Spanish were fucking vicious. So the Dutch shot people who attacked them. As far as I know, I'm sure the Dutch did some fucked up shit. But as far as I know, the Dutch set up like trade outposts, and then they traded with people. And then if somebody tried to kill them, they shot them. That's what the Dutch did. But apparently the Spanish and the Portuguese were all about like forced conversion at the tip of the sword. So apparently Spanish and Portuguese colonialism was fucking brutal. And by the way, I see you guys saying fuck Columbus in chat. Yeah, fuck Columbus, right? Like one of the things that Columbus wrote down that I think is one of the most like morally indicting things that you can do is he wrote down like, oh yeah, you know, conquistadors are actually pretty easy to get right now. Some of them will take payment in gold or silver, but realistically, the things that are most in demand are women, like female sex slaves, and women in particular around age 12 are in super high demand. So I understand that I'm looking and judging that based off of like a 20th century, 21st century morality. But effectively what he's talking about is he's talking about normalizing the practice of sexually enslaving indigenous people and selling them to conquistadors in order to incentivize colonization. There is 0 times that I will downplay that. Also, the same thing with the Mastiffs. Okay, Mastiffs. You guys might not know this. Spanish colonial Mastiffs. So Mastiffs are awesome. Conquistador war dogs. So Conquistador war dogs are a very cool idea, but if you think about it for more than 3 seconds, you'll realize how fucked up it is. So conquistadors kept Mastiffs, and do you guys know the difference between a war dog and a guard dog? A guard dog will let you know there is a problem. A war dog will eat the problem. Okay? So conquistadors had some variant of Mastiff, and they used it to hunt indigenous people, and they put like leather armor and spiked collars on the dogs so they wouldn't get killed by the local flora or fauna, but also so they wouldn't get killed by the people they were hunting. But they unleashed these guys on Native Americans. They use war dogs to hunt and kill Native Americans. So imagine effectively, like, either from the Native American side or from being a Spanish. This is like a real thing, by the way. This isn't Game of Thrones. This isn't a fantasy setting. This isn't Warhammer 40K. We're not talking about Warhammer 40K. We're talking about on the continent that probably 80 to 90% of you are sitting on. On the continent that 80 to 90% of you are sitting on, the Spanish conquistadors used war dogs to hunt and kill Native Americans. That's some grim, dark ass shit. So, no, you won't find me sweeping for early colonialism.
Saying that undocumented migrants are actually responsible for a metric ton of the crimes that are taking place in American cities, when that is an abject lie, okay? And when I talk to congresspersons, whether it be at the DNC or even before, even after, and I tell them, why the fuck aren't you guys counter-messaging against this? We are a nation of immigrants. America is the most diverse nation on the fucking planet. It is literally the reason why we are such a domineering force beyond all these other, beyond all the other, violent reasons. But like that.
Doobie says, you legit brought up Zoran Mamdani saying fuck Columbus as if it were a bad thing. Yeah, because I think he was a part of like a virtue signal at the time in order to take down American colonial history. Regardless of whether or not you like it, Christopher Columbus was the beginning of American colonial history. You can say that he's evil, but I don't think his statues should be taken down. I think that his sanitized historical narrative should be added to, like all of the brutal details of Columbus should be added to actual Columbian history. That's what I want. I don't want the statues to come down. I don't want I just want the plaques to change. I want the plaque to say, this is a statue of Christopher Columbus credited with finding the New World. He sailed the ocean blue in 1492 with 3 ships. A third of his crew got wiped out due to dysentery and death and disease. Now, his legacy is one of the beginning of American colonialism, but it also is one marred by controversy. That controversy is the brutal conditions under colonialism, including slavery, rape, and murder. And that's what I want the plaque to say. For more details, go to smithsonian.com/Columbus. That's what I want the statue to stay up, and I want the plaque to say that. Okay?
That is one of the most redeemable aspects of America that I personally love, that the Democrats completely dropped because they were scared. They saw that one poll from the Pew Center of Research that said that 66% of Americans want mass deportations. That exact same poll also showed that if given 2 options, mass deportation and mass amnesty, that the majority always chose mass amnesty. So why is that never communicated?
Hold on, what?
that if given two options, mass deportation and mass amnesty, that the majority always chose mass amnesty. So why is that never communicated? Because Americans, sure, the median voter, trying to understand where the median voter is coming from is impossible. Okay.
Check out the Griner Hall Mastiff, and somebody said a different breed as well. Griner Hall Mastiff. See, where else do you get this kind of content? We're just watching a political debate about a bunch of dumbasses, no offense, going back and forth on what the Democratic Party should be and how they fucked up in the past. That is a cool dog. I'm not going to lie. Somebody said something else, though. They said like the Molosaucian or something. What was the other dog breed that somebody said? Should be right here. You mean the Molossian Hound? Molossian Hound. I'll look at the Molossian Mastiff. Woo. Brutal. I'll look at the Molossian Hound. Ooh. That is a dog. That is a dog. Damn, dude, that guy's riding it like a horse. The puppy is 8 months old and weighs 174 pounds. Holy shit. Yeah, Molossian. Bruh, the point is that some colonials used war dogs and they killed people in fucked up ways. That's all I'm trying to say.
Okay, you will kill yourself if you try to understand what these people are
You just
thinking.
lost me, Hasan. I was with you halfway through that, but you lost me. But I'm with
No,
you.
but what I'm trying to say is this, okay? There are Trump supporters out there, okay, that have been deluded into thinking that Donald Trump represented a change, and obviously we saw that buyer's remorse this past Tuesday, right? Especially in Hispanic communities where they were like, "Oh, I can't believe that he is actually doing mass deportation," and it's you know, we're in DC, is a fairly liberal crowd, and we laugh at those people, but like I talk to those people every day, and there were people that genuinely thought, they genuinely believed that Donald Trump was actually excising the violent criminals. And the only reason why people are led to believe this lie, aside from the faucet of misinformation that comes from independent outlets on the right and also Fox News as well, is because there is no robust response from the Democratic Party that says that's a fucking lie. That's a lie.
These nuts, Corey Peltzman. By the way, thank you everybody for financial support. Chapingro with 3 super chats, Grassroots Hajman with 20, LK Messer with 100 DKK, Base Perry for 5, Tristan Clark for 5, and Anonymous Chatter for 20. Thank you, kings and queens. Quick show as we're moving through the content. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. I parasocially love you. Thank you for hanging out.
Documented migrants.
Oh, also, sorry, Corey Peltzman, D's nuts.
In this country are responsible for a lower rate of per capita crime than natural-born U.S. citizens are. If you pair that up with documented migrants, it's negligible. It is marginal, and they're hyper-focusing on it specifically because this is a vulnerable population that is easy to target and it's easy to ridicule, and there is not enough of a robust defense mechanism.
When's tonight's debate? 6 p.m.
out there. Yeah. And that's the reason why people end up believing this bullshit, and then they get shocked when it's actually implemented.
So I think that's a good point, and I think I sort of agree with Tim and with Simone about this.
Impossible.
No,
fundamental rift.
Because one of Trump's gifts is I think he convinced a lot of people he was going to go after criminals, but he also said at the convention that they were going to do mass deportations. And I think how to bring it back is that is possible because of a big void. So Trump can do a lot. Trump has room to operate, to maneuver. Why? Because he has built an authentic connection with millions of people who believe him, who have his back, who think, yeah, he'll compromise. It is inconceivable that Kamala Harris would appoint Mike Pence to be Secretary of Health and Human Services. Inconceivable. We wouldn't live in that world. But Trump can appoint a Kennedy to run the health department. Why? Because he has built such a credible, loyal following.
I'm going to end it here because, frankly, I'm tired of hearing these people yap. I want to yap. But this is my frustration, and this is part of the thing that I'm just going to tell you right now that this is why I'm in the political position that I'm in. Seeing Jessica Tarlov, like kind of what's considered a right-wing liberal or like an extreme liberal, a liberal with a spine, fight Fox News pundits is entertaining to me. We might disagree on policy. We might disagree on, what the tax rate should be, Black Lives Matter, police reform. We might disagree on details, but we can fight that out because she's probably like a sane liberal with a spine. Then Tim Miller and I know Purple Political Breakdown is disappointed that I'm not a Tim Miller simp, but Tim Miller and I are probably is the narcissism of small differences. We're probably like 95 to 98% aligned. I just resent the fact that, in my opinion, he's looked at the political landscape and he said, it'll be easier for me to maneuver as a right-wing member of a Democratic coalition than it will be for me to maneuver as the bastion of never Trump Republicanism. Therefore, I'm going to be more cozy with the liberals, more cozy with the progressives. Okay. I think that's a choice, and it's a choice that I wish he didn't make. I understand it for pragmatic reasons. I don't like it personally. However, this panel is exactly why I kind of resent Pisco saying like, oh, you need to just come over to the left, come over to the left, come over to the left. Because what's going to happen is, let's say that this was Pisco. I could have like a sane technocratic political debate on what is the right way forward, because the difference between a liberal and a conservatarian is probably not that big of a gap to jump, and we can just fight about technocratic details. But then the liberal is allied with a progressive who's going to be annoying, no offense, Simone, annoying and shrill and aggressive and woke. And then I'm going to have to fight the progressive on the annoying, shrill, and progressive and woke shit. And then the liberal is going to, of course, steelman the progressive, even though they're being annoying as shit. And then I'm also going to have to fight a socialist or a communist or a leftist or a soc dem. And by the way, I like soc dems to a degree, because soc dems are like technocratically trying to engineer the best society possible through a high tax rate and welfare. Like, we could talk about that from a technocratic perspective. So I don't resent soc dems anywhere near as much as I resent progressives and socialists and communists. But I don't want to have to fight socialists and communists all the god dang time. I don't want to. It would be like, let's imagine that we were on the right, and on the right wing you had a never Trump Republican, then you had like a contrarian MAGA person like Tim Pool, then you had like a Trump cultist, and then you had Nick Fuentes. I legitimately view it the same way. Like an unapologetic Christian authoritarian theocrat. That's the way that I view Hasan Piker. So the fact that I would have to share a political coalition with that fucking freak would make me say, I'm in the wrong room. I'm in the wrong room. So what I would rather do, because I do think it's not only possible, I think it's necessary. I think that, let's say that was happening, where Tim Miller was a never Trump Republican, or I was a never Trump Republican. There was a contrarian right winger, and there was a MAGA person, and then there was a Christian nationalist, unapologetic Christian nationalist authoritarian. I think that what's needed in the political landscape is, once Trump's gone, the Trump cultist is lost because he's an idiot, and he's going to go wherever he's a sheep. He's going to go wherever the next hot thing is. So then it becomes a fight for, well, is the contrarian right winger and is the never Trump Republican going to dominate the future of the Republican Party, or is it going to be the Christian theocrat? And the Christian theocrat authoritarian is going to have a lot of confidence. They're going to mimic Trump's confidence. They're going to lie about shit. They're going to try to sanitize authoritarian figures. And so the Trump cultist can go in one of two directions. And if there isn't a strong, moderate right wing, then the Trump cultists are going to go to the Christian nationalists and the authoritarian. So sorry, going onto the left wing in order to marginalize socialists and communists and in order to try to temper progressives is not what we need in this political moment. What's needed in the political moment is never Trump Republicans and contrarian right wingers who might be freed from the hallucinations of Trump need to fight for the minds of MAGA cultists and Trump cultists, who hopefully will be waking up from their hypnotized trance any moment now, and they need to marginalize the Christian nationalist theocratic authoritarians. All right. All right. See you in a little bit.